Hola, and welcome to my review looking back at the weekend's Mexican Grand Prix. I wouldn't say it was the most thrilling of Grand Prix, but there was still plenty of talking points. There was still some drama, particularly during the race, and there always saw a good qualifying session as well. But your top three on race day in Mexico of Max Verstappen, Lewis Hamilton, and Sergio Perez. So after the weekend in Mexico, we saw Max Verstappen extend his lead in the Drivers' Championship, and you have to say at this point in time, Red Bull, Max Verstappen look like they're in a good position, and there's every chance that we could see potentially a new Formula One world champion come the end of 2021. However, there's still four races to go. We go to Interlagos next, and you would think that that would be a Red Bull track, and generally Max does go well round in Interlagos. But if there's one team who can bounce back, it's Mercedes. They are champions for a reason. Hamilton is a seven times world champion for a reason. And Mercedes will not give up. So write Mercedes off at your peril. Yes, no, they didn't win Mexico. But as I said in my preview, I think it was always going to be a Red Bull track, although they did lock out the front row in qualifying, which I'll come on to talk about in a bit. Um, but I guess you have to start with Red Bull and Max Verstappen. Look, obviously Red Bull would have been gutted to only manage, well, I say only, but to only um, be third and fourth in qualifying on Saturday. But Max got off to a unbelievable start. Probably the best start he could have wished for. Obviously there was a bit of luck with Valtteri getting spun round by Daniel Ricciardo. But Verstappen on the outside saw the gap and went for it. And you know what? It was a fantastic move from the Dutchman. And really, once he was out in front, there was no catching him, and he just looked comfortable out in front. So yeah, another fine performance from Max Verstappen in the Red Bull and also in Mexico. So that's two wins in the Americas now. Him winning in Austin, winning in Mexico at the weekend. Can he make it three wins in the Americas? As I just mentioned, Formula One heads to Interlagos in Brazil. But I think Max is in a very good place right now, and I think Checo, Sergio Perez, who I'm going to talk about now, in the interview he did with Sky Sports, being impressed with the maturity and just the way Max now looks like he's composed. It feels like he's assured. And I've been really impressed with Max's attitude this year, in terms of the way he's come across, the way he's spoken about, and you get the impression that he's really matured a lot, Max. I think as he's still a young lad, but I think as now the more experience he's getting in Formula One, I think the more mature he's becoming. So yeah, I've been really impressed with Max's attitude, particularly this season, and four races to go, and Red Bull and Max are in the box seat. However, it takes just one DNF for Max and then a win for Lewis, and Lewis is then leading the Drivers' Championship. So there's still a lot to play for this year. But as I say, great win for Max and in Mexico, and yeah, definitely deserved the win. And onto the other half of the Red Bull garage, unbelievable weekend for Sergio Perez. Obviously, being um, being Mexican, being on podium, the first Mexican ever at Mexican Grand Prix, that was no doubt must have been a special feeling. Look, Checo would like to have won the race, but still for him to be able to finish on the podium, and that's free racing now on the trot now where he's finished on the podium, and ever since he's finished on the podium in Turkey, I think Checo's just got a lot more confidence with Red Bull car, and I think we're now starting to see the best of him as a Red Bull driver. And yeah, I'm really happy for Checo. Putting a good form, a solid weekend for the Mexican. Wasn't quite able to get by Lewis Hamilton in the race during the latter part of the race. But even so, a lot of positives that Sergio can take from the weekend, and yeah, really happy for Checo, and good to see the celebrations and Red Bull. And the thing is though, with Checo um, really stepping up in these last three races, Red Bull have now found themselves only 1 point in the constructors behind Mercedes. So now, the good thing with Red Bull now is they're not having to just rely on Verstappen to get those results. At least you've got now someone of Checo's experience, of his guile, who's now starting to bring in the results. And actually, Red Bull are starting to reap benefits now. So Red Bull are in a good position with both of their drivers. So that's the job that Checo was brought into, and you have to say he's doing a good job. Slow start, but then I think this second half of the season, I think he has come on stronger. So yeah, really happy for Checo, and a great weekend for Red Bull. So we talked about Mercedes, and I think it was always going to be difficult for Mercedes to take victory in Mexico, and that proved to be the case. However, Lewis still finishing second. He's not a bad result. It's not disastrous. They just didn't quite have the pace to challenge Max and Red Bull on race day. But qualifying was certainly a real turn up for the books. That's for sure. I don't think many people are expecting. It's funny actually. You think of Mercedes and you think of the amount of poles and race wins they've had in these last since the hybrid era. But I don't think anyone even no, as I say, even though they've achieved so many race wins and pole positions, I don't think anyone would have expected Mercedes to um, lock out the front row in qualifying with the Mexican track being a Red Bull track. You would say, but Mercedes did it on Saturday, and a superb job from Valtteri Bottas on Saturday, and we know on Sunday, unfortunately, Valtteri got spun around by Dan Ricciardo through now with Valtteri, he's through no fault of his own. And then really, once that happened, it was yeah, more or less game over, and they wasn't able to them to make the impact, the inroads that Valtteri would have liked during the race, so finishing outside outside the top 10. So yeah, difficult to end to the weekend for Valtteri Bottas in what started out actually as a great Saturday, but a horrible Sunday. But for Lewis, as I say, still finishing second. I think if you said to him he'd finish second in Mexico, I'm sure he would have taken it. Look, obviously he wants to win every race, but that's not always going to be possible all the time. So finishing second was not a disastrous result for Lewis. And as I mentioned earlier, it just takes one bad result for Red Bull and Max and a win for Lewis, and then Lewis finds himself leading the Drivers' Championship. There's 4 races to go and still plenty to play for. So yeah, just the way that things are looking in the Drivers' Championship between Lewis and Max, but also in the constructors, where you've got battles not just between Red Bull and Mercedes, but other teams as well, so which we're going to come on to talk about now. Yeah, it's just so many intriguing battles up and down the field. So yeah, the Red Bull Mercedes battle will continue in Brazil. So, coming on to talk about the other teams in the constructors, so for teams challenging for third, McLaren and Ferrari. So it is advantage Ferrari now. So Ferrari to Charles Leclerc, and Carlos Sainz finishing fifth and sixth in the race on Sunday. And ever since those upgrades in Russia, Ferrari, they've looked strong. They've looked good. Obviously, not at the real sharp end. And when you think of Ferrari, you would expect them to be at the sharp end. But considering where they were last season, and you consider the progress that they've made this year, I think Ferrari have made some really good improvements. And I think as I say, another solid weekend for Charles Leclerc. Another great job from Carlos Sainz as well. I did predict Carlos Sainz would finish on the podium, but obviously that didn't happen. Although I did get two drivers right on who would finish on the podium, but no, a good solid weekend for Ferrari, and now they've got, I believe, a 13-point advantage over McLaren in the constructors. So Lando Norris only managing 10th place finish, and McLaren just solitary 1 point. But having said that, now a really good recovery drive from Lando, considering the fact that he started from the back of the grid and to finish in the top 10. Yes, it was only a solitary point, but even so, a really good performance from Lando Norris. Yeah, and then with Darren Ricciardo, once he had that incident with Valtteri on the opening lap, really that was his race done. Without that, I think Daniel potentially could have actually finished ahead of both Ferraris. It would have been tough, but I think it could have been possible. So yeah, not a strong weekend for McLaren, but last season we saw it in Interlagos. When Carlos was a McLaren driver, if I remember correctly. Sorry, not last year, 2019. We saw McLaren finish on the podium in Brazil. So, don't write McLaren off just yet. Still 4 races to go, and I think McLaren have still got a massive say in the battle for third in the constructors. Just because Ferrari got a 13-point lead doesn't mean Ferrari are gonna run away with it now. I think McLaren, we're going to tracks after Brazil. Going to Qatar, also Saudi Arabia, tracks where Formula One hasn't been yet. So we don't know what to expect, and McLaren might even be right at the sharp end. You just never know. So yeah, I've been really intrigued to see that battle for third in the constructors, see how it pans out between now and the end of the season, and also the battle for fifth in the constructors as well between Alpine and AlphaTauri. And after this weekend's results in Mexico, both teams find themselves level on points going into next Grand Prix in Brazil. But one of the star drivers of not just the race but the weekend, Pierre Gasly, an unbelievable job from the Frenchman. Yeah, brilliant qualifying on Saturday to qualify fifth, and then in race day, yes, he was in a race of his own, but no, didn't really have the pace to challenge the Red Bulls and Mercedes. But then he wasn't really under attack from the teams behind, including Ferrari. So an unbelievable job from Pierre Gasly. And yeah, once again, proven to be one of the stars of this season as well. It just makes me wonder with Pierre, where can he go at the end of, because I believe his contract comes to an end at the end of next season. Where does that leave him? Would he, would Red Bull want to recall him, or would he go to, say, for instance, a team like Alpine? Possibly Mercedes. Would Mercedes take on Pierre Gasly? Depends on what Lewis has planned um, at the end of next season. But yeah, no, I think Pierre Gasly would definitely be a driver in demand for sure. At the end of next season, if he decided to leave AlphaTauri. But AlphaTauri have had a decent year this year, and I think obviously with new regulations coming into place next year, maybe being at AlphaTauri might not be a bad thing for Pierre Gasly and going into the long term as well. So but yeah, cracking drive from Pierre Gasly throughout the weekend, and not quite a strong weekend for Alpine, although Fernando Alonso did pick up a couple of points for the team. So yeah, that battle for fifth in the constructors, I think, is going to go down to the wire as well. And I've just got to do a couple more shout outs really. To Sebastian Vettel and Aston Martin. Really solid weekend for Sebastian, and what it was good for us to see him have a weekend where actually things panned out, as well as they did. Not a bad qualifying session on Saturday for Sebastian, and then really he was able to make his strategy work on race day, and pick up some really useful points for him and for Aston Martin as well. So yeah, really good weekend for Sebastian Vettel, and but I have to say, one of the other stars of the drivers, Kimi Raikkonen. Certainly wasn't expecting Alfa Romeo to be in the points, but cracking drive from Kimi Raikkonen shows that he's still got it, and they still got that quality. And as no, Williams may have felt secure in eighth in the constructors. They might not necessarily be so now after Kimi's result in Mexico. So Williams perhaps might be looking over their shoulders. Not well, difficult weekend for Williams. But they'll feel like they need to score at least a few more points to to guarantee that eighth place. And anything can happen in these final four races. So yeah, really good drive from Kimi Raikkonen on race day, and Alfa Romeo closed that gap a little bit in the constructors to Williams in eighth. I still fancy Williams to finish in eighth, but as I say, with Alfa Romeo and Kimi Raikkonen finishing in the points on race day in Mexico, perhaps that battle for eighth might not be necessarily sealed for Williams. So yeah, not a bad Mexican Grand Prix atmosphere. No doubt was, you could just by looking, watching on TV, you got a sense of the atmosphere and like a party atmosphere, and felt like you wanted to be there. Now, if there was one Grand Prix I'd go to abroad, Mexico would be one of them. So, but yeah, great weekend in terms of the atmosphere. The race, I wouldn't say it's a thriller, but it wasn't a bad race. It wasn't a bad race at all. But yeah, good race. And Formula One heads to Brazil next, and the wait is almost over for that weekend. So yeah, I'll be doing my Brazilian Grand Prix preview later on this week. And if you want to talk things Formula One, I'm on Twitter at Baggies20, and I'm also on Instagram, ManishPatel89, and I will catch up with all you guys and girls when I do my preview for the Brazilian Grand Prix. Take care, everyone.